Okay, let's run.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks! What are you?
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to And I Quote, the weekly show where we introduce you to content creators of all shapes and sizes that join us from any and all corners of the nerd universe. We find out more about them by taking your questions. I am your host, Ryan of Nerd Culture, and our guest on this episode is one of the coolest cats in the galaxy. He's going to walk that out in style and profile. Please welcome Kenny Calderon to the set. Kenny, how you doing, big man?
I'm doing very well, very well. Hello, everyone.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for being with us here, Kenny. Now, if you have any questions for Kenny as we go throughout the course of this episode of And I Quote, please, by all means, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Our producers are going to be keeping an eye on it, I should say, during the course of this episode. And if this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. With that being said, geez, I have a way with words. Kenny, when did you start reading comics?
Ooh. I'd have to say that my first experience reading comics in general had to have been, I think I was about 7, 8, right? Because growing up in New York, my first exposure to the medium were the Sunday funnies out of the paper. So it was, the weekly Spider-Man serials, the Sunday funnies with Garfield and Ziggy and so forth. So that was my first exposure to the medium in general, right? But the interest didn't really develop until much later that I cleared Frank Miller's run on Man Without Fear.
Good one. Definitely a good run. Definitely. What would you say are some of you, aside from the one known as Frank Miller, who would you say are some of your other favorite comic book writers or artists, past or present?
Easily, my biggest influences are definitely Miller for his use of positive and negative space, the way he would lay out his panels. George Perez, his attention to detail and composition is unmatched. Todd McFarlane for his confidence and dynamic posing. And I won't say above everyone. I mean, David Finch for sure, because he's a maniac with that pencil. But above everybody, I'd say Mark Silvestri.
Yeah, good names. Absolutely. What would you say are some of your favorite comic book-based movies or TV series, past or present?
That's a pretty good one. Movies or TV series, right? Working backwards, easily Daredevil, the Netflix series. That's top tier. Punisher, the Netflix series. After that, I would go with probably all of or most of phase 1 of the MCU. I loved Man of Steel. I'm a huge Superman fan. Huge Superman fan. I'm still upset that they let my boy Henry go, right? That was a big mistake. But I'm optimistic that they'll bring him back because the new guy that they hired, I forgot his name, he looks like a young Henry. So there is that possibility that they may bring Henry back in a Kingdom Come capacity, right? the original Richard Donner films, right? Primarily Superman 1 and 2, Batman 89, the Nolan films, of course. And I am partial to Edward Norton's Incredible Hulk over the Ang Lee. I felt like it was a nice callback to the original TV series with Lou Ferrigno, right? And okay, the Great American Hero. It's a cheesy it's a cheesy 80s series, but it's my childhood. I loved it.
Oh my goodness. Good ones there. Yeah, you brought up some really good ones. And it's funny because those movies, some of the movies you just mentioned a moment ago with regards to the Dark Knight trilogy, Incredible Hulk, and some of the other ones there, Dark Knight and Incredible Hulk just turned 15 this month and last month. Both films turned 15 respectively. And also Henry Cavill's masterpiece, known as Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder, turned 10. So it's amazing how time flies.
It's crazy how time flies, right?
Yeah, no pun intended. I wish I had the ability to fly. But I 100% agree with you. Henry Cavill didn't get his own trilogy the way he should have. I would have loved to have seen where they were going to go with that universe moving forward. Had Zack Snyder and his creative team had moved forward with it. And yes, I do agree that Man of Steel is very underrated. I think the Incredible Hulk film is underrated with Edward Norton. Yeah. Great film. And yes, it does remind me of the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno show, respectively. Yes. And funny enough, Ferrigno shows up in that movie as a cameo. Yeah. He shows up as the security guard at the college campus that Bruce Banner's trying to, infiltrate and get his data to send to Mr. Blue. In the Incredible Hulk, he's like, "Hey man, if I don't make this delivery, my boss is going to kill me." It's like, all right, you can have the pizza.
Honorable mention, the old Flash series with John Wesley Shipp.
Oh yeah, okay, I can get with that. It's funny. I remember John Wesley Shipp best, not so much for his role in the Flash, even though I know that's one of his biggest roles in his filmography. Is that the word? Yeah. For me, I remember him best as Bastion's father in the Neverending Story Part 2 from Warner Brothers. Yeah, I don't know if you knew that or not, but he plays Bastian Balthazar Bucks, the lead character's dad, in that second film.
Wow.
And he and
That's a great callback.
And John Wesley Shipp, I had the pleasure of meeting him once at a convention years ago, and he and I sat down and we talked about his experience filming the Neverending Story 2. And he says, well, we shot the interiors on this set, and then we filled the exteriors of Vancouver. And I thought, whoa, that's crazy. It's crazy. It's amazing.
Movie magic, right?
It's movie magic. Ooh, yeah. So it's amazing stuff. I'm glad you brought that up. Man, some really good titles there. Some underrated stuff, too. I dig it. Ooh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing stuff. It's amazing stuff. So when did you specifically decide, or when did you start becoming an indie comic book artist or cover artist?
So I think it would, I would say it would have been somewhere about 20 years ago, give or take, right? Because it started off very, very small in scale. I began with doing cover art for CDs and mixtapes. I had some affiliation with some guys that were doing music production for Sony. And they were promoting some artists that were up and coming at the time locally here in Miami. And, because I knew like one of the producers, brother, he's like, oh, I know an artist. He can do some cover art for us. So that's how it started. And then, just building a network from there. I partnered up with some indie publishers that were also up and coming, and they've seen some of my work and wanted to do something with one of their IPs. And from there, it just kind of blossomed. I mean, because the nature of this business is very much dependent on who you know, the reputation that you have, whether or not you can deliver the goods, right? And your networking, right? So it pretty much snowballed from there. And then, I got into doing a lot of conventions back in like 2009. I think I did my very, very first one, which was like the very last J-Con in Orlando. And I was there for that one. Right. And from there, it just kind of exploded. It's been progressively getting larger from there, because, through there, I've worked with writers like Cathalson on his Grace Flynn IP. I did the full interior for that, as well as some cover art and promotional art for that. Creature Entertainment, which is one of the largest indie publishers in the East Coast, and most recently Philbo Entertainment. I've been on his variant covers for A Tragedy.
That's incredible stuff. I feel like Phillip Russertt doesn't know the meaning of take a day off. He doesn't. He's 24/7. He's always plugging that Creator Con, always plugging what he's doing on his YouTube and the people that he's working with creatively. I'm not saying it's not just about him. It's about everybody that he's involved with, because it's a huge team effort over there. 100%. What is a team effort is that you are joining us for this incredible, see, there's a Marvel word for you, incredible episode of And I Quote. Don't forget to like and share this episode with all of your closest friends. If you have any questions for our guest, Kenny Calderon, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. We're more than happy to take those as they come in respectively. With that being said, what would you say are some of the rewards about being an indie comic book artist? What do you think are some of the rewards about it?
Man, I would say the genuine appreciation for what you do, right? Because I've also done some stuff for like Upper Deck and Marvel, right, by way of sketch cards, and I feel as though, sure, your work can be good, but if it's tied to like a big name, it sort of like warrants that extra appreciation because it's something licensed. I feel like with indie work, they're appreciating you for you, not because you're tied to a big publisher. So I feel as though the clamor or the praise that you would get for doing something good on an indie IP is more genuine, as opposed to, okay, I'll pick it up because it's a DC book. I'll pick it up because it's a Dark Horse one shot or something. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it's more genuine that way. I mean, it goes both ways. Like if the work is crap, they'll tell you it's crap, right? But that's from my experience so far, has been very positive, because I try to give all of the creators that I work with like my best, right? I live and breathe whatever project I'm currently working on. Like example, right now I'm shameless plug, I'm working on the Tragedy manga that I'm doing that book from cover to cover, right? And it's my first manga. It's not my first full book, because I've done a few of those already, but it's my first manga, and I'm having a blast with it. I'm in the home stretch. It's due for release next month on Kickstarter. So, and the few people that have seen the behind the scenes of the art that I've been composing for the book, they've been very impressed. And some have even said that it's some of my best work. So,
my goodness, great power comes great responsibility.
Right.
I'll tell you, but you're rocking it and shocking it, man. I'm serious, But on the opposite side of the fence, though, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges about being an indie comic book artist?
I'd say that it's getting your work out there, right? Because of the fact that you don't have a PR team. Because of the fact that it's totally reliant on you to get it in front of the eyes of people. I would say that's the biggest challenge of being an indie artist. right? Because aside from being the talent, you have to incorporate an entrepreneurial mindset into what you do. I've been doing this for a significantly long time, right? And I didn't have like any mentors in how to build my clientele base or how to build a network, or just it was just me learning as I went and experimenting. So it's doing the legwork. There was a point where I was doing like 16 conventions a year, which is insanity and really expensive, right? And I was doing commissions at like a super low price, right? Just so that I can get my work out there and get that word of mouth going, right? Oh, this guy Kenny, he's a great artist. He'll nail whatever you're looking for. He'll get it as close to your vision as possible, and he's reasonably priced, just to build that, right? That I can proudly say 20 years later, like it's paid off. So, it's really reliant on doing the footwork and getting your work out there. Especially now, I would say that it's a lot easier because we live in this age where everything is accessible at our fingertips, via our phone or computers, and there's more platforms for you to showcase your work. But 10, 20 years ago, there weren't a whole lot of outlets. There was no Instagram. I mean, it was DeviantArt and maybe a few like underground platforms that were set up to showcase artwork. You know what I mean? Like MySpace, right? But it's a hustle, right? But the hustle is worth it if you're doing good work and you remain ethical. Very important. You remain ethical in what you do, right? I can say with great pride that I continue to get work because I treat everybody the same. I take on your project as if you were Marvel or DC, and I give you top tier work, right? Because I'm one of those individuals that like I tend to forget that what I'm drawing most of the time isn't for me. So I draw it like it's for me, right? So I go kind of above and beyond like what you're paying for. You know what I mean? So it's the passion for what I do. I just want to be able to keep doing it. So in order for me to do that, I show as many people as I can. I put it in everybody's face. I do tons of shows. And I try to maintain a good reputation because that reputation gets passed around through word of mouth, and it'll eventually come back.
Very well said, and thank you for sharing that with us. And once again, this is an episode of what is known as And I Quote. We're here with Kenny Calderon. If you have any questions for him, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Don't forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. And someone does, in fact, have a question for you. Kirk Allen is here in the chat, and he says, or he asks, I should say, how hard was the beginning start of getting out there for you? I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It was tough. It was tough because I'm a native New Yorker. I live in Miami. Before moving here, I've never been here, not even on vacation. So I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to talk to. I was shooting blind. But thankfully I had met some individuals that were plugged into some paparazzi scenes, that knew people in industries that were adjacent to the one that I was trying to break into. So I just did networking everywhere. If it was a house showing,
right, for real estate, I would network there. If it was a video shoot for like a rapper or somebody, I'm there passing out business cards, right? As an artist designer, you know what I mean? It didn't matter. So the important thing is, to just get the name out there, regardless of the situation or the audience, because it'll filter its way back. One of the great things about art is that it appeals to everyone. You know what I mean? And there's a nerd. We're all nerds about something, right? You know what I mean? And you can see it when you go to conventions. You know what I mean? Like when I brought my fiance to her first con, it was Puerto Rico Comic Con last April, not this past April, last year April. She comes from a corporate environment, so she's like, "Oh, I don't know, this, that, and the third." And I'm like, "Trust me, these things. There's something here for everybody," and you'll notice that there's no social divisions here, right? Like it's like when you go to high school, when you're in high school and you're in the lunchroom, like all the jocks sit together, the popular kids sit together, the nerds are off in one corner, right? Here, everybody's a nerd about something. So this is one unified community, regardless of where you come from. And sure enough, 10 minutes after setting up the table, she's sitting at the table, and then there's a group of girls. There's a group of girls that come around the corner, and they're all in Sailor Moon cosplay. This woman lost her mind. She was like, "Oh my God." And then, 20 minutes later, there was a guy dressed up as one of the Peaky Blinders, which is one of her favorite shows, right? I was like, "No, go ahead. Go walk around, take some pictures." She had a blast. There's something, the thing is that there is something in art and in popular culture, right, that taps into the personal nerve center in everyone, right? This is why art will always retain its value in any economy.
Boy, that is hashtag like a boss that you got to go to a Comic-Con. That is boss right there. That is just boss. Love it. Love the enthusiasm. I'm glad that she's getting into the whole Comic-Con side of things.
Oh.
Embracing the inner nerd, brothers and sisters. Yeah. You gotta embrace it, man. You gotta embrace it. And by the way, Kirk Allen has a very interesting question for you, I should say. He asks, did you find that working art and also juggling your family and other responsibilities and work is the biggest challenge?
Yes, it is. It is a big challenge, but I can say that for me, I'm fortunate enough to have a very supportive group of people in my family, right? My fiance has supported me from day one. My mom, her and my sister are probably my biggest cheerleaders, right? That to this day, my mother keeps a big storage bin full of everything that I've ever drawn, right? Like going back to the first drawing that I did in kindergarten, right? And like some of the old comics that I did when I was like 12, where I was like creating OCs and making just short comic strips with like cheesy dad jokes, right? She still has all of that, and to this day, everything that gets put into print, she owns a copy of it, and she has it stored up. I'd say that after that would be my son. I have a 10-year-old. Going on 11. Dominic, if you're watching this, Daddy loves you. He has grown up watching me do this. So there hasn't been a day since he was born that he hasn't seen me sitting in front of my drafting table drawing something. So that is when you really take off, right? When you know that you have a support group. People have been able to do it without that. I struggled for a long time, especially in the first, I'd say maybe 8 years of my doing this, right? Because I didn't have that support group just in my orbit, right? but persevere, right? If you want it bad enough, it'll happen. You know what I mean? Like, you just, bypass the naysayers, you keep doing what you do. It may take a little longer, but it'll happen. I'm, thankfully I'm able to do this full time. I come from your standard 9 to 5 jobs. I've worked warehouses, I've worked in security, I've worked front desk at hotels, I've been working office jobs, doing accounting, but I'm a full-time artist now. So you just got to stay the course.
Man, seems like you're a jack of all trades to a certain degree. It's absolutely amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I would like to share with you and with you who may be watching or listening to some examples here of Kenny's work. I'm just curious. This bad boy right here, which once again, I'm going to use this hashtag a few times because it's just fun to use. Hashtag like a boss. So this piece here, I believe this is Moon Knight from Marvel, if I'm not mistaken. My question is, how long did it take you to put together this piece featuring Moon Knight?
Man, I think it took me a little over 2 hours. This was a little over 2 hours because I did it on a live stream with Will Playton, who's a phenomenal painter. I love this guy. Will Playton, he's like my brother in arms, right? And Phil Russertt, right? We were doing it on the legendary live streams. So this piece was done live, right? And I think I was able to knock out all of my pencils and the majority of my ink work in the full live stream.
Jeez, that's masterful, as one might say. And it's a great piece of work. And for those of you maybe watching or listening to this and wondering what it was, that was Moon Knight. The next image I would like to share with you here, this one, I'm going to take a wild guess. I am the law. It's Judge Dredd. So I'm just curious, how long did it take you to put together this piece featuring the character known as Judge Dredd?
This was less time. I'd say easily about hour and 45. Because I already had an idea on the composition that I wanted to use. And, once the composition was in, it was autopilot after that. You don't have any audio, Ryan.
Oh, my bad. My mistake. But anyway, what I was saying was, with these two pieces, they belong in some form of an art gallery somewhere. My gosh, these are freaking awesome.
Thank you.
I would venture to say, I mean, Moon Knight, he's a crazy, wacky character who's had a long run in the comics. Judge Dredd's been around for a long, long time as well. So there's no shortage of history featuring either one of these characters, whether it be Moon Knight from Marvel or Judge Dredd from, what was it, 2008? Is it 2000 AD? 2000 AD comics? Something like that. Yeah. So, yeah. I think it was 2080. If I'm wrong about that, let us know in the comments. Good Lord. And by the way, Kirk Allen was responding to something earlier with that question with juggling the work and the family and all those responsibilities. He says, I love that answer you gave earlier.
I appreciate it. And it holds true. I mean, because look, I'm self-taught. I didn't go to a fancy art school, right? I'm in my early 40s, right? Hence the salt and pepper, right? And the goatee. So there was no YouTube, there was no TikTok tutorials, there was none of that, right? Everything that I use in my professional work to this day have been things that I've learned and experimented with over the course of decades, ever since I was 7, right? That I remember I would sit in front of the television after school watching the old Adam West Batman, and like that block of television right after school where it was like Batman 66, Thundercats, Silverhawks, the original TMNT from the 80s, right? Right before they would go into the sitcoms, right? So I would sit in front of the TV with construction paper. That was one of the things that I always coveted. A crisp sheet of construction paper and a finely sharpened pencil. That like excited me more than an action figure as a kid. You know what I mean? So it's just keeping at it. And I would imitate, I would experiment, do things outside of my comfort zone. And I would observe how other artists work. Because odds are you'll see something in their process that you can incorporate into your process. See, drawing is the ability to problem solve in real time, right? You're laying in a composition, you're observing how some proportions work with others, right? Because you want to make sure that the overall piece feels unified, right? Otherwise, if you hyper-focus on one area and then you hyper-focus on the next, it sort of looks like a Frankenstein or a Picasso-style piece, right? Where things kind of feel a little oblong. So it's problem solving as you render through the artwork.
Yeah, man.
So, and you know, to that, it's finding your own shortcuts. You know what I mean? Like observing how other people have done it prior to you, imitating what they've done, and then finding an easier way to do it that works for you.
Right on, right on. That is some good stuff, man. And thank you for sharing that with us. And once again, this is, and I quote, with our special guest, Kenny Calderon, on this episode. Don't forget to like and share this with everyone you know. If you have any questions for him, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Be more than happy to take those as they come in. With that being said, any special memories for you from being at conventions, whether you are there as a vendor or there as an attendee, other than converting your lovely fiance to Comic-Conism?
Man, there's one. No, I'd say there's two. I'll give you guys two. The first one is the day I met George Perez. I was at MegaCon in 2015, right? And I'm guested at a table of one of the writers that I had done work for. And one of my buddies who I went up to MegaCon with, he is indirectly related to George, right? So he's like, "Oh, hey, George is around the corner from where we're sitting, right? Do you want to meet him?" Listen, I've never in my life ever fanboyed to the point where I stuttered and my hands got jittery like when I met George Perez for the first time. Okay? Like this man, top 3 of my biggest art influences. Like that man has influenced my work in a way where like you can spot influences of George in the things that I do. And like I shook his hand. He was super nice, super humble. I shook his hand. And I'm like, I'm a huge fan. I even messed up my favorite George Perez issue. Like I told him it was like Avengers number 800. He was like, "Oh, I worked on 200. I was like, "Yeah, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. I'm nervous." Right. And the picture that's actually up on my Facebook and on my Instagram, it's a picture of me shaking his hand, and I got the goofiest look on my face. Right. It's the only time I've ever fanboyed with an artist. And then the second one would be the first time I met Neil Adams. I was at Raleigh SuperCon in North Carolina, and I have heard horror stories about Neil. Right, Neil making people cry, and like Neil being super rude. Right. And we had just gotten there. I was guesting at the booth with Creature Entertainment, and we had just got there. We were setting up, and I saw Neil. And, you know, he's typically not there. It's usually like his underlings or his elves that are like, you know, selling his artwork. So I took advantage of the moment, and I said, Mr. Adams, can I shake your hand? He was like, yeah. He shook my hand. He took a picture. He was super nice too. I think it's probably because I'm like a much bigger guy. I'm like 6'2", 250, right? So he didn't want to come at me sideways. And as a bonus, there's a bonus one. That this one completely blindsided me. I was at Miami Con, late last year, or late 2021. Very small con. So anyone who's in Miami, if you've ever been to Miami Con, you know how tiny that show is. But it's a great show for collectors. And I'm down the aisle from Jimmy Palmiotti, right? He's there with his entourage and so on. It's a one-day show, so like at the end of the day, I'm wrapping things up. My head is down. I'm packing up my books, and he comes up to the table, and he says, "Hey, how are you? Is this a Kickstarter book? Because I had one of the recent books that I worked on." I look up, and it's Jimmy, and I'm like, "Oh, hey," right? And he shook my hand. He was super nice. He picked up the book, and coincidentally, I had worked with his brother Peter on. Peter's done some ink work for me on a project that I did a few years ago, and he was super down to earth. He took my card. I gave him a copy of the book. Right? He took a picture with me. Super nice. But like, George was the only time I've ever fanboyed though.
Wow. Great stories. Are you a fan of his? I mean, I'm assuming you are, since you love George Perez so much. Did you like what he did on Crisis on Infinite Earths?
Classic.
I mean, that's one of the pinnacles, right?
That's classic.
One of the biggest moments in the history of DC Comics. I actually just read that for the first time earlier this year, and I got to tell you, I got to be honest. As someone who's only started reading comics within the last, what has it been now, 6 years? I started reading in 2017, so I'm late to the party. But hey, better late than never.
Right.
And Crisis on Infinite Earths, I thought I was going to be confused because there's so many characters and there's so many different other Earths and other iterations of different characters on those respective areas.
Mm-hmm.
I was confused. I was able to follow it and get it. I was able to wrap my head around it and think, oh, okay, so this is how this is going, right? This is how this is going to go down. And obviously you see the big spoiler, and this has been named, or not named, this has been mentioned numerous times on the interwebs. You can see it everywhere. Superman holding Supergirl's body. Like that's been imitated in so many different pieces of art.
Oh, it's iconic. It's up there with McFarlane's Spider-Man cover, Spider-Man #1. That's been done a million times.
Oh yeah, with Spider-Man, Spider-Man and other characters within other publishing houses, respectively. But that was a really good book. I like Crisis on Infinite Earths. Those are really cool stories, and I thank you for sharing those with us. That is some incredible stuff. And by the way, Kirk Allen here has a question. He says, have you ever done any collaborations with other big-name artists in your career thus far?
I'd say that the only one that I've collaborated that's been in the industry was Peter Palmiotti, right? Because I'm a fan of his run on Aquaman back in the 90s. That was the Aquaman that had the hook that I guess Jason Momoa is like modeled after now in these Aquaman movies. But outside of that, no, because I'm an indie guy, right? I like mercenary work, right? I try to steer clear of the big guys, right? And just kind of do my own thing without restriction, or at least too much of it.
Right, with the big fish. And Kirk Allen says, like Ryan Benjamin, for example. Ryan Benjamin, is that one of his favorites, I'm assuming, Kirk?
Yeah, it's only been Peter, I enjoy sort of like building up lesser known IPs.
Yeah, that's fair. That's completely fair. And what else is fair is that you are listening or watching this amazing, there I go again, episode of And I Quote. Don't forget to like and share this with every single person that you know. If you have any questions for our guest, Kenny Calderon, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. We'd be more than happy to hear from you. And for those of you who have been watching and listening, thank you so much for being here. We do greatly appreciate it, 100%. And another thing I want to let you guys in on is that this episode, or should I say every episode of And I Quote is indeed powered by our good friends over there at Poddex. Now, get this. Poddex are unique interview questions and episode starting prompts in the palm of your own hand. So whether you are a new podcaster or existing broadcaster looking to grow your audience or get more engagement, you're going to want to check out poddex.com. That's PODDECKS.com. Make sure you use that promo code Ryan10. That's RYAN10. Ryan10 for 10% off your first order. You're not going to miss out on that one, folks. I guarantee it. So, Kenny, Poddex wants to know, what was your first screen name?
Oh,
back in the day.
That's AOL.
Yeah.
Oof. It was James Bond 79. James Bond 79, but the James was sans all the vowels, so it was JMSBOND 79.
All right. James Bond fan, I see. Are we?
Kinda. I mean,
okay, all right. Well, that brings me to the bonus question: favorite James Bond movie?
Modern or classic?
Both.
Classic. I would say all of the Connery James Bond movies.
There you go.
Outside of Connery, A View to a Kill. Okay. And modern, Casino Royale.
Booyah. That's a great film right there. Daniel Craig in his debut performance. Oh.
And they slept on him. They slept on him, and he blew that performance out of the water.
Yep. You know, it's funny, though. Did you know, I don't know if you knew this or not, and for those of you maybe wondering, we're discussing the James Bond franchise. Did you know that Henry Cavill was going to be James Bond at one point?
Yes.
Right before Daniel Craig got it?
Yes. I saw that.
They were going to give it to our boy Henry.
And I think he would have done a great job. Like, he did fantastic. He did fantastic in that Mission Impossible movie.
But not only that, he also played a secret agent in the modern day remake, or it was a movie based off a classic television show that just happened to be a remake of The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yes, I remember that.
He played it as a straight up agent, and then and this is in the trailer as well as in the final cut of the film. I don't think this is one of those scenes that was left within the cutting room floor. Remember when he picks up the lady's shoes in the midway through the film after he has a night out with her, and he says, "Do these belong to you or to me?" And I'm thinking. He's got this lick, man. He can do drama, but he can also do comedy when it calls for it. And Bond, Bond has a little bit of that to him. So
absolutely,
I would have loved to have seen him as James Bond. I think Henry would have nailed it.
You can kind of see a little bit of the Bond while he's Superman, right? He's got like that subtle swagger.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, he does. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that.
There's a little bit of that. Yeah. I'm getting with that. And Kirk Allen is saying, "Oh, good with those answers there, man." See, he's Kirk Allen's getting with it. Yeah, that's a good one for me. James Bond classic. If we want to go classic, I don't know if this counts as classic or not because it's from the Connery. Like I respect his films, but looking back, I don't like them as much now as I did when I was a bit younger.
Right.
So they kind of have fallen out of favor for me. No, nothing against Sean Connery, great actor, one of the greatest of all time. But if I'm going to go classic Bond, I don't know if this counts as classic before modern. I don't know if this counts or not, but I'm going to go with Timothy Dalton. I like what Timothy Dalton brought to the role because I think Timothy Dalton is an underrated performer. I think he's an underrated James Bond actor because his two films, especially the second one, License to Kill from 1989. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
Yeah.
But that was the first PG-13 rated Bond film, and it was also the first dark, like quote unquote dark, gritty Bond film, if you will, with regards to who was it, Timothy Dalton. So if you haven't seen his run, it was a brief run. It was only 2 films. I would have liked to have seen him do more, honestly.
Right.
But then again, we did get my boy Pierce in '95 Goldeneye, so I'm not losing sleep over that, partner.
Yeah, that's true. Now that GoldenEye is in a class all on itself.
Come come on, dude. The first time he walks into the what is it, the poker table, the baccarat table playing with, and it's ironic that Famke Janssen plays a Bond girl in one movie, and then less than 5 years later, she's playing one of the most iconic comic book characters as Jean Grey in the X-Men trilogy.
Oh yeah,
that's cray cray.
Exactly.
I mean, she plays Zena on a top. Your accent. Georgian? Very good, Mr. Bond. You've been to Russia. Anyway, if you've never seen GoldenEye, treat yourself. It's one of the best action movies ever made in the history of cinema. So for me, classic, I'm going with Timothy Dalton's probably either Living Daylights or License to Kill. But modern day, outside of Pierce Brosnan's GoldenEye, because that's a masterpiece all on its own, I'm going to go with you on that with Casino Royale. I think it's a boss of a film. Even the opening is in black and white. I mean, no Bond film. I mean, granted, some of the ones that came before, the quote-unquote canon era, right? Those films that don't count, those were somewhat in black and white. I think one or two of them may have been. But when you open a movie in 2006 in black and white for the first, 5-7 minutes of that movie, that's gutsy. Yeah, that's gutsy. But it worked. It worked beautifully. And then when he turns around, when the guy's trying to shoot, and then boom, does the gun barrel sequence, and then accuse the late great Chris Cornell's "You Know My Name." Chris Cornell, rest in peace.
100%.
That's a great film. I can watch it all day long. We need to do some James Bond rankings.
We do.
We should do a separate show. You and I should sit down and do some James Bond discussions.
I'm down. See, the thing is that, granted, not to say that the follow-ups to Casino Royale were bad.
No, I liked them.
They were. Anyway. The thing is that those follow-ups were very action-driven. Mm-hmm. Where like Casino Royale still had that spy intrigue.
There was a story there.
Yeah, it was like that language of subtleties. That subtlety where everybody was at the table and like you can feel the tension building as like people were betting, right? And play poker, like
and the Sheaf with his commentary.
Yes, like that's very like classic like Bond novels. You know what I mean? Like that's what I loved about it.
I'm hoping our little game isn't causing you to perspire. You've changed your shirt, Mr. Bond. It's just, ugh. But
so good.
Isn't it funny when he comes back like 20 minutes later after almost dying from that woman poisoning his drink in Casino Royale, and then he comes out and he says, "I'm sorry, I lost hand." And I'm thinking, dude, it literally did almost kill you, but you're making a joke about it. But that's what Bond does. He does the throw-ins there, and it's just, if you've never seen, I mean, most people have, but if you've never seen the movie Casino Royale from 2006, I'm not talking about the original, I'm talking about the 2006 modern day version. If you haven't seen it, sit your behind down, stream it, get a bowl of popcorn, get a soda or whatever it is that fits your fancy, and just watch the heck out of that film, because who can say that this director, Martin Campbell, has rebooted not just one, but two characters. And he did it with one character twice. He rebooted James Bond with GoldenEye. Then he rebooted him again with Casino Royale by directing both those two films. And then before that, he rebooted Zorro with The Mask of Zorro, which just turned 25 last week with The Mask of Zorro.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Same guy directed all three films. He directed GoldenEye, Casino Royale from 2006, and The Mask of Zorro from 1998.
Interesting. Fun fact. The guy that plays the villain in The Mask of Zorro ended up being the same actor that plays Eobard Thawne in the Flash series on CW.
Interesting. Boy, we're getting all kinds of fun facts here. But what else
I'm a huge cinephile, is why.
Okay, all right. So, okay, we're pretty cool here. You and I need to sit down and do some discussions about some movies after this conversation is over. But I do want to let you know that this is, and I quote, hosted by Ryan of Nerdculture, and our guest is Kenny Calderon. Let us know if you have any questions for Kenny in the comments or in the chat. If you are joining us live or on the replay, thank you for being here. But don't forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. In the meantime, Poddex wants to know, if you could undo one moment in your life, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
We're going deep.
If I could undo one moment, I wouldn't undo any of it. I feel like the bumps you take along the road are like, the hammer of the blacksmith that like mold you into what you're intended to become. So a lot of that has molded me into being a better artist, a better partner, a better dad, and just a better overall human being. I wouldn't change a thing.
There you go. Mic drop. Anywho, if you had to delete all but 3 apps from your smartphone, which ones would you keep?
All but 3.
Yep. If you had to delete all but 3 apps from your smartphone, which ones would you keep?
I would keep my banking app, right? I'd keep Instagram. And I would keep my photo editor because it helps me like size my stuff up for Instagram.
There you go. Very important things. Very important things. And Poddex wants to know, what would be your best day ever?
Best day ever. I'm gonna sound like a cornball, but I think that my best day ever, second only to the day that my son was born, would be the day my fiance and I get married. We're still planning, so I think that would be like the best day ever.
There you go. Still deciding on a date, as it were.
Yeah.
And,
weddings are expensive.
If there's one thing we all know about weddings, whether you've experienced them or not, it is the expense of it.
Yeah, weddings are expensive.
Yeah.
And because I know that it's going to be a one-off, right? Like situation.
Right.
It's everything. It's who's going to do the pictures, who's going to play the music, what kind of food. It's a bunch of things, right? So there's a lot of moving parts in order to make the day like as special as can be, right? Because for me, it's a one and done. She's the one. You know what I mean? So if there's anything that I've grown to appreciate at my age is consistency, right? When people can be consistent with you, I hold that to a higher standard than money or anything that you could do for me, like socially, because there's no guesswork involved, right? Like, whether or not you can count on them or not. Like, they're not the wild card. So it's just consistency, and she's been incredible. She's been like an upgrade across the board, for me. And aside from just making me a better person, like not making me be a better person, but like I feel impulsed to be better for her, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, it makes sense. And also, Kirk Allen goes on to say, it's going to be your busiest day ever, my friend, when that day arrives.
I believe it. And I'm a huge softie. So, like, I know I'm going to be a wreck. Yeah. I know I'm going to be a wreck.
And Kirk Allen says, I'm 14 years into his marriage and relationship. So
God bless.
There you go. Bless. We wish, and congratulations on that, by the way, Kirk Allen. 14 years in. Yeah. There you go. Rock on, man. Yeah, it's going to be a busy day for you, man. But you know what? You're going to figure it out. It's all going to come together. The pieces are going to fit. It's going to work. And plus, correct me if I'm wrong, you're located within the Sunshine State of Florida. So there's no shortage of entertainment, people that can help you with that kind of stuff. I mean, if I had the phone number for what was originally, they changed their name years and years ago. But if I had the phone number for the Miami Sound Machine led by Gloria Estefan, then I would happily pass that number on to you. But unfortunately, I don't have that number, and I don't know her personal number because she and I aren't that close yet. But I do know that if you want to play a song to play at what is known as the reception, I believe, you can always do the conga line. You can always play Conga by Gloria Estefan. I don't think there's a problem with that. I mean, does anyone remember that song? I like it.
It's a good song. It's a good song.
You can find it on YouTube.
I'd have to be nice and sauced up to start congaing in the middle of the reception.
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out
nice
there
and
as a
saucy.
for instance. I'm just saying you don't have to use it. I'm just offering it to you as a possible idea for something you may want to add to the reception itinerary. But listen, with all due respect, that's neither here nor there. But what is here is I want to take is me taking this opportunity to say thank you to Kenny Calderon for being our guest on this episode of And I Quote. This has been incredible. We've learned a lot of wonderful things about our guest, and we hope you who may be watching or listening to this have learned something too. Kenny, thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. I had a blast.
Yeah, this has been a wonderful time. We wish you nothing but the best with your career, with all the projects you have coming up, with your upcoming somebody's getting married, the nuptials, the marriage, the relationship, everything around it, the doves tying everything together, and the magical things that come with a marriage and a happily ever after, like a Disney movie. # not a sponsor. But Kenny, I do want to ask you, where can the person watching or listening to this follow you on social media and everything that you have coming up? What do you got?
Very easy, right? It'll be on my Instagram at Wild Inx Ken, all separated by underscore, right? The bio on my Instagram page has a link to my link tree that'll take you to everything else. My Whatnot sales, my Etsy shop, my TikTok, but Wild Inx Ken, all separated by underscore. That'll be the hub. I update when I'm going to do show appearances, what projects I'm involved in. So the latest one is going to be Tragedy, the manga, that's due to hit Kickstarter next month, and like that's where to go. Instagram at Wild Inx Ken or Wild Inx Studioz with a Z. That's my studio page where I showcase a lot of the art. Well, Wild Inx Ken is more so like random and personal stuff.
Rock on, man. Thank you so much for being here. Do greatly appreciate it. My name is Ryan of Nerd Culture. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram if you must. If you want to talk more about the James Bond series with with Kenny and I, or something to that effect, I don't know. I'll leave that up to you. But hey, it's a good deal. So follow me personally on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5. Follow us on all forms of social media at It's Nerd Culture, and on YouTube at Nerd Culture Channel. All those links to where you can follow Kenny as well as myself are located within the description of this video, whether you are watching this or listening to this on our audio feed. So definitely check all that stuff out. Also, I want to let you know something, that we are this close to hitting 1,000 subscribers on this channel. Once we do, we're going to throw a great big live stream that's going to include returning guests, some surprise guests, and some special giveaways for you, our incredible fans and subscribers. The only way we get there is for you to tell a friend, and they tell their friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. You know how these things go. Rising tide lifts all ships. Also, our next Comic-Con is going to be July 28th through the 30th. We're going to be at GalaxyCon in Raleigh, North Carolina. That's a big show with some of the biggest names in the comic book and entertainment industry. So join us there July 28th through the 30th in Raleigh, North Carolina for GalaxyCon. That is going to be a lot of fun, and we are looking forward to seeing some familiar faces there, as well as meeting some new ones. So if you see us, come and say hi, take a picture with us, post it on your Instagram, make all your other friends jealous, because that's just something fun we like to do. It's all fun and games, guys. It's all fun and games. Other than that, stay healthy, stay strong, stay safe, and remember, life is better when reading books and or comic books. Take a look.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
Sweet dreams they placed on me inside my mind. Chance my truth, twist the past, my memories are fading fast. Am I still missed? Who do you want me to be? Am I still
You've worked hard and written a great book. Now, it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasmafire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasmafire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
Good morning! Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.